The Bible Study Podcast, episode 615. Today, the Bible Study Podcast continues the study of the book of Ezra with chapter 5. Welcome to the Bible Study Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. We're continuing on with chapter 5, and time has passed, and so we've got a new emperor of Persia, and this is Darius II, to be more precise. And this is Tattenai's letter to Darius. Now Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the prophet, a descendant of Iddo, prophesied to the Jews in Judah and Jerusalem in the name of the God of Israel who was over them. Then Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, and Joshua, son of Jehozadak, set to work to rebuild the house of God in Jerusalem, and the prophets of God were with them, supporting them. At that time Tattenai, governor of the Trans-Euphrates, and Shethar-Bozenai and their associates went to them and asked, "Who authorized you to rebuild this temple and finish it?" They also asked, "What are the names of those who are constructing this building?" But the eye of their God was watching over the elders of the Jews, and they were not stopped until a report could go to Darius and his written reply be received. This is a copy of the letter that Tattenai, the governor of Trans-Euphrates, and Shethar-Bozenai and their associates, the officials of the Trans-Euphrates, sent to King Darius. The report they sent to him read as follows. To King Darius, cordial greetings. The king should know that we went to the district of Judah, to the temple of the great God. The people are building it with large stones and placing the timbers in the walls. The work is being carried out with diligence and is making rapid progress under their direction. We questioned the elders and asked them, "Who authorized you to rebuild this temple and to finish it?" We also asked them their names so we could write down the names of their leaders for your information. This is the information they gave us. We are the servants of the God of heaven and earth, and we are rebuilding the temple that was built many years ago, one that a great king of Israel built and finished. But because our ancestors angered the God of heaven, he gave them into the lands of Nebuchadnezzar the Chaldean, king of Babylon, who destroyed the temple and deported the people to Babylon. However, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Babylon, King Cyrus issued a decree to rebuild this house of God. He even removed from the temple of Babylon the gold and silver articles of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temples of Jerusalem and brought to the temples in Babylon. Then King Cyrus gave them to a man named Sheshbazzar, whom he had appointed governor. And he told him, "Take these articles and go and deposit them in the temple in Jerusalem, and rebuild the house of God on its site." So this Sheshbazzar came and laid the foundations of the house of God in Jerusalem. From that day to the present it has been under construction, but is not yet finished. Now if it pleases the king, let a search be made in the royal archives at Babylon to see if King Cyrus did in fact issue a decree to build this house of God in Jerusalem. Then let the king send us his decision in this manner. And so time has passed. We've got a new emperor. There's all sorts of things going on in Persia. As again, we're getting to the closing days of the Persian Empire, which will close after the end of the Old Testament. And we have prophets, and these are names of some prophets you may recognize because we have the books of these prophets, the prophet Haggai and the prophet Zechariah. They are considered minor prophets, minor in the sense that the books they write are small. The minor prophet is not necessarily the level of importance of the prophet, but how much impact they have on the scripture, how many pages they have. And they are assisting with this work, or they're supporting this work because God is supporting this work. And then there are new governors as well. And so a new governor in Trans-Euphrates comes and sees this work and asks appropriate questions. Who authorized you? And what are your names? And he sends off this letter. Now remember, last chapter we also had a letter that was going to the king, and that was going to King Xerxes. And that particular letter was slanted in a particular direction. And that letter said, hey, if you look in the archives, you'll find that this is a rebellious people. They are constantly rebelling, and therefore you shouldn't let them complete this work. And it talked more about the walls than the temple. It talked more about these people are rebuilding this rebellious city and they should be stopped. And so this letter came back that said, stop this work. But again, time has passed, about a generation, and so all of this has been forgotten again. And so this time, when they send off this letter, it's quite a different letter, because it's a letter that is not intending to say, should we stop? This should be stopped, and it's not a letter saying this should be started. But it's a letter that just said, what should I do? Here's the situation. So it's more unbiased in terms of how it's laid out. He says, I asked them this question, and this is the answer I got. And of course, the answer they got is the story of why this temple was destroyed. And they don't say this temple was destroyed by Babylon because Babylon was mean. They say this temple was destroyed because we were unfaithful. We were unfaithful to God, and so we were given over to Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. And so we're rebuilding this temple, who your previous emperor, Cyrus or Cyrus, and I know I pronounced this inconsistently, Cyrus, let's say this week, sent us back. Not only did he send us back, but he supported this work. He sent us back with orders, basically, that this temple be reconstructed. And he sent back with gold and silver that had been provided. And so this is going to kick off this search again in the archives, but this time a very different search, not the search for why to stop this, but the search for why this got started, and has this been supported by previous emperors? Is this something that I should do? Well, if a previous emperor has started it, then it's probably a better idea. And so they go and they were going to make this search in the archives, and so the people of Israel say, go ahead and look in your archives, and we will abide with whatever decision you say, which is, a great way to talk to the emperor, great way to talk to the king. And of course, they know that when he searches in the archives, he's going to find that what they're telling is true. Now, the other thing that I liked about this is, as they're describing this, the governor of Trans-Euphrates, who is not Jewish, and we have to say if he's not Jewish, that would mean at the time he would be polytheistic, because all of the other religions at the time were polytheistic. They worshipped many gods. And so how is he going to describe this temple? And it's interesting that he doesn't say that the temple of the people of the God of the people of Israel, but he describes it as the temple of the great God. Because how would you differentiate to somebody who is polytheistic, if you're polytheistic, about who this God is they worship? And they worship the great God. They worship the God over all gods, would be the way you would tend to think about it. That's not the way the Jewish people would think about it. They would say this is the temple to the only God. But of course, that's not who's describing it. It's being described by the governor. And he writes back and he sends this letter. Now, one of the interesting things we're going to see about this letter is this letter is going to cause some changes. And one of the changes we're going to see about 2 chapters from now is we're reading in the book of Ezra, but Ezra hasn't been taking part yet. Again, we're multi-generational into this letter, and some things are going to change. So let's stay tuned for that. And with that, we're going to end this episode of the Bible Study Podcast. If you have any questions, send an email to host@thebiblestudypodcast.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at thebiblestudypodcast.com. And thanks so much for listening.
Feeling stressed? Let's take better care of you. I'm Bonnie Gray, the host of Breathe, the Stress Less podcast. Subscribe at lifeaudio.com.